There, there's a little bit of publicity about a church in Elkins, West Virginia, called the Summit, where some dude was, I guess, caught with CP or something like that, or trading pictures or whatever. And I just want to say that I met the preacher of that church, the Summit. His name is Hal Boehm. And I had a really serious problem. At the time, I was working with arsenic treated lumber with the Amish. I was a door maker for the Amish, for the Mennonites. I'm sorry, for a Mennonite family in Beverly, West Virginia. I used to make doors and rafters and help them put up barns and sheds and stuff. And I I ended up getting this really weird lump, and the lump was like the size of an egg, and it was really severe. I was really having trouble with it, and um, I prayed to God and I asked God, like, what do I do about this? And He told me that I needed to go to church on Sunday. He told me that I needed to go to he told me about this church with a stage where people played music, that I needed to find it. And so I got online and I figured out which church it was that had the cool stage where people played music. I went to it. God told me that the preacher was going to be praying up front, healing prayers for people, and that I needed to go up to the front, and that this preacher was going to pray for me, and that he was going to heal me. And dude, I actually found the church that God was talking about. And the preacher actually did do like this call to the front for whoever wanted healing prayers. And it could have been a call to the front for anything, but it was specifically for healing prayers. So it's like, okay, this is for me. And I went up there, and I was standing beside this lady who only had one leg, and she was just bawling her eyes out. It was so sad. And, I don't know what all different kinds of problems or issues that everybody had who was up there, because dozens of people walked to the front. And he prayed for all of them, but whenever he got to me, he started acting really, really weird, and he started covering his eyes. And then he walked over to me, and he covered my ears, and he began to say these weird prayers, supernatural prayers over me. He made sure that I couldn't hear them, which I was the only person he did that to. And within an hour, the egg-shaped growth was gone. Within an hour. And it had been there for a while. Like, I'd gone to doctors about it. Nurses were checking it out. They were like, we don't know what this is or what it's even connected to in there. They're like, we don't even know. Like, we're sorry. Which is BS. It's because they've had me under medical martial law since I was a teenager. So they're just all like, well, we don't know what's happening to you every time that I go in there. Or they misdiagnose me to give me the wrong medications deliberately. But I just wanted to speak up for Hal Boehm and for his wife. I did see where some wiggly little turd got in trouble for messing with kids or selling or trading pics or something like that. I don't completely know the whole story, but I just wanted, and I'm pretty upset about the satanic churches where the children are abused. That's the kind of church that I grew up in. But I'm going to defend the Summit a little bit, and this is going to be the first church that I have ever defended like this. You know what I mean? But I will say that Hal Boehm is a real man of God. I'm sorry, dude, for putting it out there like that. You might get attacked and targeted just for me saying that. Will you guys please pray for and protect Hal Boehm? Because he really is a real man of God. He really can lay hands on someone, and he has a supernatural healing ability. He said he'd never healed anyone ever before. and he may never again, but I am going to speak up for Hal Boehm and say that that is a really special person. And I would appreciate it if, whatever happens with that Summit Church, that people didn't hold him personally responsible and accountable for whatever terrible things might happen underneath that roof. And I'm really stepping out on a limb here because I know how bad the religious leaders are nationwide right now. I know that they're getting into necromancy. I know that they're part of secret societies and stuff. And I really hope that as I'm defending Hal Boehm, that he's not part of any of those weird organizations or societies or whatever. But as someone who does have a prophetic mantle, and as someone who was in need of help at the time and was really suffering, I I was told to go to Hal's church by God, and he did technically lay hands on me, even though it was in the form of covering up my ears. And the dude prayed for me, and a lump that was the size of an egg was gone in 1 hour. In 1 hour, it was gone. I don't even know when it left entirely. It could have left immediately. I have no idea, but I know that I went to the bathroom an hour later and it was gone. And I know that's weird. It was just like, it was in a place, of course, that I wasn't going to be able to like check in front of everybody else. It was a bad situation, man. And, it was something, as I said, I'd gone to doctors and nurses about, and they were just like, we don't know what they say is. And because they kept telling me that they didn't know what it was, I recognize it as what's called a demonic manifestation or a demonic attachment. Sometimes a person can have an issue, a physical ailment or issue or sickness or whatever, and the doctors, medical science can't always identify what's happening there. Sometimes there is no answer for people. Sometimes people are just like, I have no idea this. I don't know what this is even connected to. You know what I mean? Like, I don't even know what this is. I can't tell if it's a swollen lymph node or whatever. Like, there were so many people that were just like, I don't know what this is. And that doesn't just have, that happens to people all the time. And when no one can tell you what it is that you have, when no one can tell you what's wrong with you, it could be a demonic manifestation. I did consider at the time that it was the result of handling arsenic-treated lumber in the wintertime. Because during the dry seasons, in drier climate, when we handle the arsenic-treated lumber, we of course have gloves on. that lumber isn't wet. But in the wintertime, when that lumber is snowed on, and we have to pick that lumber up with our fabric gloves or whatever and move it, that arsenic seeps into that snow and everything. It leaches into our gloves. And here we're, using wet arsenic treated hands to handle all of this lumber and to build, to put all this stuff together. And I wondered if, and the arsenic treated lumber is illegal. It was, you know what I mean? It was illegal at the time, but it was being ordered from Canada. But the Mennonites didn't care. And I would end up like reading up a little bit about how arsenic can potentially cause weird issues like that. But because no one was like, and that could also be like that they hadn't seen people who were suffering from arsenic poisoning too many times. You know what I'm saying? Because it's just, as it's that kind of lumber and different products are banned from the U.S. So these medical professionals might not see the results of that kind of stuff, very often. But I went ahead and I treated it as a demonic manifestation and as a demonic attachment, which meant that I needed for someone to pray for me to expel the demon or to heal me or whatever. It meant that I needed to try to do something in a supernatural way to get rid of it, because, if I treated it as a supernatural thing and it worked, which is incredible. And that's probably the most incredible healing story that I have, like supernatural healing story that I have. Actually, it might not be at this point. Some different things have happened since then. I, but it's definitely one of the most incredible supernatural healing events I had ever experienced in my whole life. Um, and it was at the hands of Boehm, dude. So, um, I didn't read the full article on whoever got in trouble. I probably will now after as I'm making this video. I'm like, I probably should have read that article a little better before making this video, but I totally step up to defend Hal Boehm, and that he is a man of God, and that, and I hope that I'm right in doing that. I don't really believe that anyone other than someone who had the Holy Spirit, like for real, and who was truly gifted and touched by God. I think that that would be the only kind of person who would be able to perform a miracle on that level. Um, and even if we don't have specific gifts, um, like even if a person doesn't have the gift of healing, God could all of a sudden work through them to heal someone randomly. Even if a person doesn't have the gift of prophecy, God could still work through them to prophesy. Um, you know, Even if a person doesn't necessarily have the gifts of knowledge and wisdom, God could still download that information to them. Um, you know, so it is pretty weird. It is all really, really weird. But that was the very first um, supernatural healing that I ever experienced. And right after he was done, I was just filled with the Spirit so much that, and hopefully I didn't turn to this woman and just pass it to her. You know what I'm saying? Whatever, demonic, whatever. But and I don't think that I did. But I turned to the woman beside me, and people had begun to pray for her, and she was just pouring, and she was just pouring tears. This one-legged woman beside me, dude, and she was the last person there to pray for. And I was just so filled with the Spirit and so filled with love, dude, and gladness that I turned to her and just hugged her and was just like loving her and hugging her. And she was crying, and she was like, no one has touched me in 10 years. She was like, thank you so much. She was like, no one will touch me. She was like, no one has touched me in over a decade. And I realized in that moment that one person's healing is going to be different from the next person's. It was like so many different things that a person would need healed from that they would walk to the altar for. And that for me, it was something physical, but for her, it was loneliness. For her, it was that no one would touch her. And just how much it meant to her that I had hugged her, that was what I had for her, was a hug. And that was what she came up there for. And just how insignificant that I might feel, that and that I felt at the time that I didn't have those kind of abilities, that I wasn't able to heal anyone, and I had to go to somebody else to receive that healing. But here I was able to turn to this person and hug them and provide them healing, and that was all that they needed. It was just an incredibly important moment for me, and maybe someday I'll sit down and actually like tell the full story and stuff. But I just wanted to put this out here, um, just on the fly, that I support Hal Boehm's ministry, and I'm all right with that dude. And hopefully, I won't end up hearing about anything horrible and be like, oh God, I just defended the wrong person. Oh, no. So, you know what I mean? I'm just letting you know my experience with the dude. Um, I will say though, that as far as like contacting them online, that is kind of a difficult process. I did have a child taken away from me. I told myself at one point that if I ever had to place my child somewhere, um, send my kids somewhere, you know what I mean? If somebody decided that I shouldn't take care of them or whatever, that I would send my kid to Hal Boehm and his wife. Um, Unfortunately, the few times that I tried to contact them on Messenger, no one really wanted to respond to me. And I did think that maybe like, I did wonder if they were part of like the bad guys, because that is a habit that the bad guys have with me, is that they put me on ignore, um, and they just ignore me, and that's just what they all do so that I can't ask anyone for help or connect to anyone. I didn't know if it was deliberate or not, so when the time came for my children to be taken away from me, I did not try to contact them. So that's kind of the sad part of the story. Uh, so it is real. It's a weird iffy thing, but I will say that the dude did supernaturally heal me one time. Uh, Thank you again, dude. And all right, I guess that's it. Peace, and God bless.